Bears recap coaching search style for Wednesday, January 15th. That's Ryan McGuffey. We call him Guff around the office when we're checking him into the wall. I'm David Kaplan. All right, Guff. Big day in Chicago Bears coaching search lore because the first time I know of that they actually rented a plane, a charter we call that, and they brought Mike McCarthy to Chicago. Now, my friend Mark Silverman on ESPN 1000 reported that McCarthy asked to be brought here. He wanted to be in person, not on Zoom, and the Bears acquiesced. I gotta think that they are, if they're going to spend several hours, then they're going to go to dinner at Chicago Cut or wherever they go tonight, that there has got to be a lot of interest by the Bears. Does that mean they're going to get a deal done now? Maybe not. Arthur Smith interviewed. We'll get to that in a minute this morning. And later in the week, Brian Flores.
Yeah, I mean, I love, like we talked about this in the Day 10 video yesterday here at Day 11. We've talked a lot about Mike McCarthy this week, and rightfully so. I'm glad he requested an in-person interview. He should. To me, he's got the cachet. He's got the resume. And quite frankly, Mike McCarthy, if I'm him, I'm not doing any Zoom interviews. I'm coming to get a coaching job. I'm coming to your building. I want to see the facility. I want to put my eyes on everything, the operation, before I sell myself and ask questions to try to get you to sell yourselves to me. So I'm glad, A, that Mike McCarthy requested that, and B, that the Bears, why wouldn't the Bears? Like, I know the process of January 20th, that guys that are under team control and working for other teams can't come in until January 20th, but there's been other guys that have been available, Pete Carroll, Mike Vrabel, who could have come in here and didn't because the Bears wanted to treat everyone the same on Zoom.
The only other one that I know of, again, we may...
It's Chico.
Ronnie Rivera. So,
right. I mean, even David Shaw, we don't know. Late last night, the Bears sent that out that David Shaw had completed.
And then we found out today from Courtney Cronin and Caitlin Kaler that it was a Zoom interview.
That they have still not complied to the Rudy rule, which means regardless of how the Mike McCarthy experience goes on Wednesday, he can leave the building without a contract.
Unless there is a candidate that we have not been told about.
Correct. So, but that would be strange that the Bears are I mean, they don't have to tell us.
Somebody who is in the league said to me, the Bears are being, quote, intentionally evasive about whether or not they've met the Rooney Rule.
That's fine. To be quite honest with you, again, I've said this ad nauseum, but get the right. If you think Mike McCarthy, if it goes so well that you feel like you have your next head coach, I honestly don't care about the next 6, 7, 8, 9 interviews you have lined up. Even if you want to talk to Ryan Day after the national championship or Marcus Freeman, which that one doesn't really make sense to me, or you want to go balls to the wall and wait this thing out and try to get Ben Johnson, which all reports are now circulating that the smoke and fire are starting to coexist. And maybe it's a bad analogy right now to all our friends out west, but with the Las Vegas Raiders, that seems to be lining up as almost do or die for them because Ben Johnson might stay in Detroit again.
Correct. The latest from Pro Football Talk, and it's 5:32 here as we're recording this on Wednesday afternoon. What we're hearing is that Pro Football Talk reported it could be looking like it's the Raiders or status quo in Detroit for Ben Johnson. I don't believe Ben Johnson's going back as an OC. I don't believe it. I believe he's going to take a job. And then there's also a report from one of the Raiders beat writers that the Raiders have already prepared a, quote, massive offer to Ben Johnson. What massive means? You're talking about a guy in Mark Davis who, when it was not the norm, gave $100 million over 10 years to John Gruden. Now, that didn't work out for them, but they're not afraid to spend.
We bring this up because all of you who are saying Ben Johnson are bust, and there's several. I mean, there's a boatload of you on the recap lunch hour with me that are like, it's Ben Johnson, it's Ben Johnson, it's Ben Johnson. And Cap and I have been pretty consistent saying, we love the guy, we love the play caller. The creativity is second to none. We just don't know. You have to go through all of the things that you don't have to do with Mike McCarthy with Ben Johnson. The Bears have done the first-time coach so many times. And I'm not quite sure right now that's what this team needs. It's time and place. It's time and place, Cap. I think this team could really benefit from a secure, confident CEO in charge of the building, in charge of the program. And Mike McCarthy might not win the sexy award. You might not go, yeah, I'm a Bears fan and we got Mike McCarthy. But 2 or 3 years from now, you might be saying,
You
damn,
might
I'm
go,
glad
wow,
we hired him.
We won 12 games. How many years in a row?
Damn,
we did
I'm
that
glad
in Dallas.
Damn, I'm glad we hired him. And we don't know what his coordinator's like. Maybe Chico is the defensive coordinator for that team. You know, some people are saying I don't think Pete Carroll's coming back to the league unless it's a head man. I could see a scenario where Ron Rivera's the assistant head coach / defensive coordinator. I could. And Mike McCarthy's calling plays. People were asking me, who's going to be his OC? I don't know. But Brian Schottenheimer was his OC in Dallas the last 2 years. Look at Brian Schottenheimer's resume. He's been an offensive coordinator in the NFL for 10 plus years. You could do a lot worse than that's what I think the Bears need. Let Mike McCarthy call the plays. Let him groom Caleb Williams like he did Aaron Rodgers, like he got the best out of Dak Prescott. And bring a guy like Brian Schottenheimer, who's 51 years old, as your backup. What's not to like about that?
Totally agree. Also, Arthur Smith interviewed this morning. Yeah, hard pass for me.
Yeah,
that didn't work in
Like,
Atlanta.
that seems like somebody missed their breakfast for nothing.
Yeah, and that's he's also the OC in Pittsburgh. Now, I will tell you, our guy Olin Kreutz on the Falco Football Recap live show, Olin said he's watched on tape a lot what Arthur's all about, and he likes him. But again, that is not a hire I see the Bears making.
Look at how the tenure ended in Atlanta. Go back and read some of the things that people were saying, players were saying about Arthur Smith. And then a report comes out today that Russell Wilson and Arthur Smith were on the same page most of the season. Now, Russell Wilson's his own guy. He's out there too. But I don't like to hear that. For a team that was 10-7 and went to the playoffs, that guy, you're bringing that guy in who now in 2 spots, players aren't talking necessarily favorably about him. And you get Micah Parsons down in Dallas, who goes on the Edge podcast today and said he's devastated to lose Mike McCarthy. And you look at he elaborates on that, talks about he's a great father, he's a great leader in the building, he's great with all the guys, he's great with the staffs. When I get Micah Parsons, who's a defensive player of the year, talking about that guy, and I look at what people are saying about Arthur Smith, it's like, that scale's doing this. Not literally, but like figuratively, that's what the scale's doing. You can't come in here. The Bears can't afford cap to hire a guy right now that's got clouds in his past or in his present. I just don't think they can.
So that leads us to the other known candidate for later in the week, and that would be Brian Flores, the DC of the Minnesota Vikings. Look, they didn't have a good finish to the season defensively, but I don't judge on one or 2 games. I judge on body of work. He gets rave reviews from the people in the Vikings building, players, coaches, staff. They love him. The people in Miami, Tua Tagovailoa, not so much. He does have some skeletons in his past with his unceremonious departure from Miami.
Yeah, like you said, everybody in Minnesota raves about him. I think Brian Flores is going to get a head coaching job, and I think he should. But I mentioned time and place. This does not seem like the right time or right place for Brian Flores to me right now. I think they do need an offensive-minded coach. Caleb Williams was on the St. Brown podcast.
I'm on an Equanimous.
Phenomenal. It's a really good listen. He talks about being catfished for the Ben Johnson. It's clear he wants Ben Johnson. If you listen to the podcast, he would prefer Ben Johnson. But then they actually go into characteristics of things. And he said, I'd prefer an offensive mind, a guy I can team up with for the next 15, 17, 19 years. I love hearing that stuff. You're talking about a guy who wants to play 15, 17, 19 years, all in. And he wants him to be a leader of men. We've heard that phrase. But if your quarterback's saying offensive mind, it feels like it should be an offensive mind. Usually what happens with teams, you go offensive mind, it didn't work out, you go defensive mind. Matt Nagy, Matt Eberflus, seems like it's going back. The pendulum's going to swing back towards the offensive
It'll be either
mind.
Monken, Ben Johnson, or Mike McCarthy.
Yeah, and I'm okay with Monken's fine. I'm okay with the Pete Carroll. I would throw Pete Carroll into my finalist tree. I don't know if that's going to be the case, but it just feels like there's so much momentum for the Mike McCarthy train to come through Chicago. And look, I think there's going to be a lot of people. I think it's going to be a fork in the road, love-hate type thing. I don't want him. Or, hey, there's a lot to like here. I don't think this is a settle thing, folks. I don't think the Bears would be settling on Mike McCarthy. As we've said on Monday and Tuesday, it's the gift you didn't expect on Monday morning because a week ago,
we all thought he was staying in Dallas.
We thought he was staying in Dallas. The Cowboys said, no thanks, you can't talk to him. And here we are a week later thinking he might be the Bears head coach.
What do you say? Post your comments down below. We'd love to know what you think. That's our Ink and Law question of the day. What do you think? Mike McCarthy's here. What do you think about the whole process? What do you think about him? That's Guff. I'm Cap. We'll have another Bears recap for you on Thursday. Have a great rest of your night. Bulls recap dropping tonight. Take that.